Training camp is here-ish, the calm before the storm, I guess. But there was a lot of news that came out of 49er land today. Some great news. I know that there's a lot of excitement about what we heard. I think probably it's fair to say that most people were shocked by what we heard to a certain extent. So we're going to talk about that. We got some other things to talk about, and we're going to do it all next. All right, welcome back to Last Second Sports, where we are giving you our take down to the last second. And it's Tuesday. Once again, I don't have my guy, So Real Sunil. He will be back next week. We got it worked out. But I ran a bit of a contest for the channel members, and I was shocked at how many people actually were interested in co-hosting a show with me. There was some great submissions, by the way. What I asked for was, if you were interested, give me 5 topics. Tell me why you should be picked. And there was a lot of really, really good options. At the end, I went with my guy Mansa here. So Mansa is the winner of the contest. He also has a little podcast of his own that I know is just starting. And this is a great platform for him, I hope. Hopefully you guys recognize him. I know that he's been on with Ryan a couple times. You guys had the hiccup, right? where you had to redo the show. But Mansa's great caller as well. Big supporter of the channel. Mansa, thank you so much for being here tonight, man.
It's a pleasure to be here, especially today.
Yeah, it worked out great. What's crazy is I'd asked for these topics from you, and I was like, okay, these are great topics. But then we had the presser today, and so that kind of took over. We do have a couple things that you wanted to talk about as well. So we are going to discuss that. Let's say what's up to the chat real quick. I see... pray for Trey. What's up? Thomas Bragg. Hey, how you doing? I'm super psyched for the start of training camp, he says. Quest for 6 begins now. 47 more days until the season. Gosh, that has really flown by if you think about it. White Boy Rick, Tom, are you really a Niner fan? 187. What's up, man? Third string all pro, says Purdy QB1. Jesse, what's up, my guy? FYI, quarterback number 1. Jesse, saw your take on Kyle. I think Kyle is a good signal caller. Never mistaken him as being a great head coach. Yeah, we'll talk about it. And in fact, what's interesting is the Tim Kawakami interview was shown to me by Marco here at Clutch Gene Sports. I put together a short on the channel, and then I forwarded off to Grant and Ryan, and I know they talked about it on the show that they just had, but we'll get into that in just a second. But let's just start with the press conference, because that's the first thing that was given to us today, Mansa. Overall, we know that the biggest news was obviously Purdy being, it was weird, worded a little weird, right? There's no limitations, but there's limitations. Either way, limitations or not, the fact that he's healthy enough to practice essentially day one is phenomenal news. Brock Purdy should be full go, ready to go week 1. And as training camp goes, it sounds like midway through training camp, they're aiming for him to be a full go every practice. As it stands now, it's going to be 2 practices on, a practice off, and then they have the day off, and then he goes again. So it's like 2 days on, 2 days off.
I thought
he's throwing the last 2 days.
I thought he wasn't going back to back.
No, he's going back to back. So it's 2 days on, 2 days off. So essentially what's happened is he's thrown for the last 2 days, so he won't go tomorrow. And then even though they said 2 on, 2 off, now he's going to go, I guess, on Friday or Thursday when they go. And then they'll be off Friday and Saturday. I think he'll throw Sunday, Monday, be off Tuesday, and then back again on Thursday, Friday. So that's the way that I understood it, was 2 on, 2 off.
Okay.
We'll see how it plays out. Either way, I do think, even if you were the most optimistic you could be about Brock Purdy, I think day 1 training camp was like, probably a little bit later in training camp. What were your overall thoughts with what you heard today?
I actually am not surprised. I actually thought that he would be able to get in. I was aiming for next week. I had put a tweet out there like 6 days ago that he'd be in training camp. And the logic behind it was the injury healed at the 3-month mark.
For sure.
From there, It's strengthening the arm. It's strengthening the arm without setbacks. So you can get some swelling, inflammation, things of that nature. I think you're beyond, the infection area. So it made sense that when I seen that he had went down to his throwing coach, the one that helped him get his velocity up coming into the league, that he's going to be throwing, and he'll be throwing. I was thinking next week, not this week.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy because early on it was like, okay, we had the setback. I didn't really know what to think, but over the last, I would say 2 months or so, it seems like it was ramping up that he would start week 1. So I don't think there was a surprise there from most people. Maybe some people would have you, but it definitely seemed like he was trending in that direction. And so my initial thought was when the surgery was pushed back, I was like, okay, he's going to be fully cleared, ready to go, but he's not going to have enough competition time to start week 1 necessarily, maybe week 2, week 3. And then as we got closer, it became pretty clear that he would be ready to go. I figured probably mid-August timeframe, they'd throw him out there. But this works too. I mean, mid-August, he'll be fully ready. So I guess that was kind of on point. But realistically, throwing now in a competitive situation, that was a little surprising to me. But, if he's fully ready to go, he's fully ready to go.
Yeah, I guess it still kind of wonders what it looks like in practice. What is he actually throwing? You know what I mean? Is he doing, is any throw any throw possible? Because in practice, it's a controlled situation. So you never know what that looks like unless you're actually looking at it.
Yeah, I think Jedi says 2 on, 1 off. It's 2 on, 2 off. Technically, it's 2 on, 1 off, but the way practice works, they have three practices and then a day off anyway. So he's going to practice 2 days. He'll have the third practice off, which is also followed by a day off. So it'll be two practices on, 1 off, but it's really 2 days on, 2 off. So however you want to do it, I just want to make sure that we're kind of clear as to what's going on. Clutch Gene Sports says Kyle just kept hedging. Even on the TK show, he hedged on Purdy. Yeah, it was interesting. I'm going to play it for y'all. Maybe some of you guys haven't caught the podcast from Tim Kawakami. That guy's the block king, by the way. He's got everybody blocked on Twitter. I don't even think I've engaged with him, and he's got me blocked. But he put together a good podcast, so I'm definitely going to give him a shout out here. But if you haven't caught it, then I think it's worth hearing. So I'll play it, and then we can talk through. Hopefully this comes through well on the mic. We'll see how it goes.
He did week in and week out each week. By the end, it wasn't a tough decision because he had all the film there. It would be really tough if they did that in practice all the time and there was no game tape. And you're going to make this decision without watching him go into a real NFL game? Like, no, I'm probably going to go with the guy that we invested in more, that we think had the higher upside before we got both, and I'm going to do that. And I still don't know what the right answer is.
Let me play that end part for y'all again in case you didn't catch it, because that was the weirdest thing for me.
With the guy that we invested in more, that we think had the higher upside before we got both, and I'm going to do that. And I still don't know what the right answer is.
Bro, 2 hours ago, you were very confident on that podium saying that Brock Purdy's your guy. Now you don't know what the right answer is? Like,
yeah, well, I mean, he's by himself. He's by himself with Tim Kawakami. Maybe because he has to deal with the locker room because he's empowered that locker room to have a decision. That locker room has a heavy decision, and he empowered them. And none of those guys are thinking anyone but Purdy.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite as similar. Like, you had the Jimmy Garoppolo situation, which I get. They had been through hell and back with Jimmy, went to a Super Bowl. They were this close to winning it. And obviously, they have some war scars now with Brock. I get maybe if there's a preference towards Brock. I don't think it's necessarily like it's Brock or die at this point. Like, I really felt like it was Jimmy or die in 2021. I don't get that situation with Brock. I understand. Again, it's understandable why you would go with Brock Purdy. And Kyle says it. Hey, if we're just going off of practice and we haven't seen games, I'm going to go with the guy who has, make sure you guys heard this, the higher upside that we spent more capital on. But because we've seen it in a game, and for many games, how do you deny that? but I'm still not sure it's the right decision. I think the way that I look at it really is it's Kyle Shanahan actually being vulnerable about the situation. In the beginning, I was like, wow, dude, this is really where your head's at. But the more I kind of remove myself from the comments and think it through, I'm like, I actually kind of appreciate that he's giving a glimpse into how hard this decision potentially is for him. He goes on to say that he believes that Brock will play fine this season and should be as good as he ever was. But in case he has any setbacks or injuries, then he's got other guys he feels confident in. So I think the whole thing is definitely worth listening to, no doubt about it. But I just found that comment very, very interesting. So,
and also, was he talking about Darnold? Darnold was known as the high upside guy coming out of college as well. So,
yeah, no, I mean he did. He talked about Darnold throughout the whole thing as well. He obviously it's obvious why Brock is being chosen, right? Like again, I think it's clear. There's no even from like the Lance guys, right? It's clear why you would make that decision. I don't know if long term it's the right decision. I mean, it just comes down to winning a Super Bowl. Win a Super Bowl, because right now what you've got is a situation where you passed on keeping Jimmy Garoppolo long term after you got to a Super Bowl and an NFC Championship game because you felt like he wasn't good enough. So that means if you have slightly better play, which I think we can all agree at this point, if Brock doesn't improve one bit, let's say he flatlines, never improves.
Better than Jimmy. There's no.
He's going to be slightly better than Jimmy, right?
No argument for me at all.
That should be enough to get you to win a Super Bowl. And if it's not, then that's where the questions come in. So there's a lot of pressure on this season, man. It really is.
It really is.
Shout out. Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a lot of unfair pressure, but I think we'll get into that. But
yeah, we will definitely. Eleanor Selman, thank you for becoming a member. I appreciate you. Twisted Clown says year 25, Kyle selects his quarterback. Yeah. I mean, that's what it feels like at this point. But, as long as they got a healthy one, I guess at the end of the season is what matters. Actually, you want to know something else that was completely interesting and sidetracked away from that? So he talked about Josh Johnson coming into that NFC Championship game. And his thought was, okay, if Brock's injury is as bad as we think it is, or as they're telling me it is, I think we can win this game with Josh Johnson. And what is Phillip Rivers doing? Because he might be my starter going into the Super Bowl. I was like,
right.
Word, really? Right, you were willing to call Phillip Rivers to start for you in the Super Bowl. That would have been a movie. I'm not going to lie. That would have been crazy.
That would have ended badly.
Could you imagine if Phillip Rivers started for us in the Super Bowl? Oh, man, I wish it would have happened now at this point. That would have been crazy.
Goodness, that would have been definitely crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man,
I'm glad we didn't have to look at anything like that.
That would have been
we lost it against Philly. It is what it is. Nothing really about it. So
no doubt about it. Well, one of the topics that you brought up to me in your email, and I think it pertains very well now that we know for sure that Brock Purdy is going to be there and that he's going to be the starter week 1 unless something crazy happens. Now that we know that, everybody talks about growing pains for Trey Lance and what it would look like if Trey Lance starts. But I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you think there might be growing pains with Brock Purdy as well. Am I reading that situation right?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Why wouldn't there be? I think it's unfair to expect him. Everybody brings up the win streak. I think it's unfair to expect a 14-win season out of him in his second season. He is coming off that surgery. We don't know what that does to his psyche. We don't know what happened when live bullets happen. We don't know what happened when he gets hit on that arm. Because he's going to get hit on that arm. Somebody's going to hit it. And he's probably going to get hit on that arm in week 1. He starts week 1. He's going up against one of the best pass rushers in the league that loves to go after the quarterback's arm. And to add to that, we face 3 of the top 5 pass rushers in the first 5 weeks. Isn't it 5 or 6? In the first 5 or 6 weeks, we face 3 of the top 5 pass rushing individuals in the league.
Who do we face? We face TJ Watt week 1. I know that we face Myles Garrett.
We got Myles Garrett, and then we got the Cowboys too.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We do play the Cowboys early, don't we?
And that's all in the first 6 weeks. Yeah.
Mm.
And then you still got Aaron Donald in the mix there, although he's usually invisible when we play him.
Isn't that weird, right? Like arguably the best player of his generation, defensively at least,
right,
is non-existent when the 49ers. That's an interesting deal.
He's like, for some reason, when we play him, I'm not even worried about him.
Yeah. It's like he doesn't. You don't even notice him on the field. Yeah,
it's like he doesn't exist.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that just lends more of an importance to McKivitz and what he brings. I know a lot of people are talking about the offensive line and maybe being in a panic mode a little bit with McKivitz starting. And I'll ask your opinion on that as well. But for me, the way I see it is the offensive line as a unit, I think can actually be better, even if McKivitz is slightly worse than Mike McGlinchey, because the way I see it is you have 3 guys in the interior of that offensive line that started for the first time ever in their careers, and now they're going into year 2 of starting. I think it's totally fair that they're going to take a leap forward, just like we would expect Brock Purdy to take a leap forward, or Trey Lance. If we expect these guys as they play to get better. So now they've got a whole season under their belt. I expect that they are a little bit better. And so even if McKivitz is a slight downgrade, overall, I think the offensive line can be better. What are your thoughts on the offensive line? Are you as concerned about that?
No. And I'm not as concerned about the pass blocking. I believe we're actually going to improve in the pass blocking. Although McKivitz isn't, a sensation or all pro, I don't think he's as bad as McGlinchey on third down. When they know the pass is coming, I don't think he's going to be as bad as McGlinchey, because if you paid attention to defenses, they always line their best pass rusher over McGlinchey.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure they're going to do it to McKivitz, because they're not going to put him against the silverback. So he's going to get tested often. He's going to get tested early. So we'll find out pretty quick. I just think he's a better pass blocker than McGlinchey.
Yeah, and that may be the case. We'll definitely see about that. Steve-O says, I'm just here for all the crying. Not going to be any crying for me, brother.
But to go
you might want to tune in somewhere else then. Huh?
But to go back to the growing pains. We haven't seen Brock in a bad weather game. Our schedule this year, we're not getting a lot of rest. We play quite a few teams on the bye. Our schedule really screwed us. So the growing pains that, like, what if the teams are catching those interceptions? How are the teams adjusting to what they had on film last year? How many teams are going to be playing their defensive backs in a way? Well, hey, we know he's not going down 25 yards on these sidelines. We can play him this way. So all of that goes into play. He's going to have to adjust to their adjustment. Kyle's going to have to adjust to their adjustment. And in between that, you're going to find growing pains.
Yeah, for sure. I also think that it's possible that statistically his season doesn't follow the same trajectory that it was last year through 8 games, but he's better, if that makes any sense. I mean, a lot of people look at just strictly wins and stats and like, okay, this quarterback's good or this one's bad, but I don't look at it that way. I really don't. I mean, even if the 49ers lose some games that are unexpected, I really feel like Brock Purdy could be ascending. The stats may not show it and the wins may not show it, but he can still be a better player. I look at some of the things that happened last year, and statistically, it looked really good. And obviously, they went undefeated. He's not going to go undefeated forever, so that naturally is going to take a back step.
Right.
And statistically, there was some luck that went into that with some of the dropped interceptions and what have you. That doesn't mean he's not improving. And so we're so impatient with the quarterback position as a whole. And I want to say this, and I've said it a million times. I'm going to continue to say it. If Brock is the starter, just be patient with him. And that's not only a message for the 49ers organization. That's a message for the fans. Be patient.
Because
sure.
It's going to be his 9th start. It's still not. He still hasn't played a full season.
For sure.
So I don't understand why you would expect a man to not have growing pains, because every quarterback has had them.
Yeah.
Except Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, but even he talks. I know that it didn't show, but he did talk about some of the growing pains he went through and reading a defense and really
he couldn't read a defense though. So
I know, but also at the same time he talked about, and really you saw it once cover 2 became a thing, or 2 deep shells became a thing. He was like the guinea pig for it. He was the test test quarterback for that whole thing. So he started to see these defenses when everybody else is running one high, all of a sudden against Mahomes, you're seeing two deep shells. And so there was some growing pains there, and it really crushed him in that Super Bowl where they lost to Tampa. And it took him a while to kind of cut through that. Once he figured it out, he's been as good as ever, but everybody's going to have dips and peaks and valleys, and it's just natural. So just be patient. Like if this is the quarterback and he's the forever guy, presumably, then just be patient with it. We all have to be patient. So I just hope that he's given grace that maybe other quarterbacks have not been given,
but I don't think
may not ever be given.
I honestly don't think he's going to be given grace. Like, I don't think he's going to be given a lot of grace. I really don't. Because when you look at it, do you see who's that got that deal today?
Herbert.
Herbert got that deal today.
Yeah.
You see the 49ers giving Brock $200 million?
Oh, I mean, I hope not. I don't want to pay any quarterback $200 million.
But that's
unless they're a bona fide top 7, top 8 guy, one of those guys. When I look at the position right now, I mean, let's go through them real quick. Like actual franchise quarterbacks. We got Mahomes, we got Allen, we got Burrow, we got Herbert, who just got paid. We got Lamar, we got Aaron Rodgers. Hurts seems to be trending there, and so does Lawrence. Like that's pretty much the list. If he gets up into that upper echelon, sure, pay him whatever, write him a blank check. But if he's in like that Kirk Cousins range where it's like he's borderline top 10 every year, you can make the argument. I feel like you're in no man's land when you pay a quarterback like that big time money.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that kind of. I don't think he's going to have that much grace because I don't think they have the patience. I think they're trying to go all in this year. So if he's looking bad and the team is losing, they'll move off on him. But I mean, it'll probably take 3 straight losses or something like that. So maybe it's not as tight of a leash as loose of a leash, but I don't know. Because there's one thing I know about Kyle Shanahan. Every quarterback that he picks has arm strength near the guys you just named. Brock's never going to have it. We're 100% sure he will never have that. I don't think that his second contract is going to be with San Francisco, but unless he takes an extremely team-friendly deal.
We've got 3 years to see. You know what I mean? We're gonna know for sure. We'll know one way or another what he is and what he isn't at that time. Like that will be clear. So that's the nice thing is they can't even negotiate until after year 3 with him, which is we got 2 full seasons. So let's keep it going.
But what if if the team's 3-5 and Jay's dad's coming down on the practice field? Are they sticking with Brock or are they going to pull him? I think he'll get.
I hope they stick with him.
They hedged behind Trey with Jimmy. They're hedging behind Brock right now. You just heard Kyle talking with Tim Kamakami. I just think that they don't respect the quarterback position enough to be patient with him for the full year. If he's your guy, you need to be patient for the whole season, as long as he's healthy.
Yeah. And maybe they will.
You have to deal with the growing pains. The same growing pains that you say you're not going to deal with Trey. They're not. They're going to be different because Brock has more experience, but he's going to have his. So
for sure.
Yeah.
Different. Yeah. I think different's a good way to say it. Like, will they exist? Yeah, but they'll be different, different areas. Yeah, right. For sure. Third, I don't get this comment at all. Herbert's overrated. There was a stat that just came out like yesterday that he's put up more points through this point in his career than any quarterback in NFL history by a pretty good margin. Andrew Luck was number 2. And there was a gap there. But also his defense has given up more points than any other quarterback through this point in their early career. So, again, this is, to me, this screams, I love quarterback wins, and that's the only stat I care about.
Definitely.
No offense, but if Herbert's overrated, then I don't know what to tell you because like he can't do it all by himself. I don't know. I mean, if you put up more points than any quarterback throughout NFL history to this point in your career, NFL history, but the defense is also giving up more points than what's he supposed to do? You want him to strap up a linebacker?
Hey, look, that man's arm talent. I don't want to hear. I don't agree with that one. His arm talent is unreal. It's
Bro, listen, I'm an Oregon Duck fan, and I've got texts going back to 3 or 4 games into his sophomore year telling people he is going to be an elite quarterback in the NFL, top 5 quarterback in the NFL. A few games into his sophomore year, and remember, that was a true sophomore year, so it was all over the place early, and people didn't once his sophomore year ended, that's kind of when people started catching on and what have you, but
right.
And especially watching it in person, which I had the privilege to do multiple times, being from Oregon and being an Oregon Duck fan. I'm telling you right now, ask Grant. He's seen it up close and personal. It's a different ball game watching somebody like that throw a football. It's crazy.
You can see that. You can see him on the field. I don't know what he's talking about.
That's crazy.
I'll just agree to disagree with him, but I'm not
for sure. No, I respect everybody's opinions, and third string all pro knows I'm just busting his chops, but and he busts mine right back, so it's all love. He knows that. God bless America. What's up? Appreciate you. Says, does Trey have any chance to win the QB1 spot during training camp, given the news that Brock is a full go, or is this something we find out during the season? I think it's, to me, it's always been about what Brock can't do, not about what Trey does.
Right.
Meaning
it's
either
Brock.
So yeah, you agree, right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. All right. So either Brock's not healthy, which does not, so we're definitely not trending towards that now, or and Kyle did bring this up during the podcast with Tim Kawakami or the interview. Hey, if Brock looks awful, then we got to pivot.
Well, the only thing about
but I don't think that's going to happen.
The only thing about it is, I don't see them putting Brock out there in the preseason where he can take the opportunity, where the opportunity is there for him to be hit. I don't think they're going to play him. And then he said that the preseason matters a lot. So it's like they said something, but they still left a lot of things open to interpretation. A lot of it's like I don't know, because they would have to, if they're not going to play Brock in a preseason game because they don't want him to get hit, then it sounds like somebody can take the job. But it's just like,
I don't think so. I mean, I think he's going to have to look awful, and I just don't foresee that happening.
Brock's going to have it's Brock's job to lose. I would say that
for sure.
I got a friend of mine that always tells me it's Purdy's job to lose, so it's confirmed it's Purdy's job to lose.
But also, we don't know how the season's going to play out. We really don't.
No.
I don't foresee them necessarily benching him if he's not playing well, but the injury thing is real. I mean, quarterbacks get injured under Shanahan quite a bit. I'm just not confident in any of these quarterbacks staying healthy for a full season. I'm really not. That's tough.
Not with the pass rushes that we're going up against.
Yeah.
It's going to be tough for everybody, I think.
It's going to be brutal. Giant Snyder fan says, shout out to your special guest, Jesse. Did he borrow Sunil's backdrop? Yeah, he might have. Maybe he actually just took Sunil out and then is like at his place. I don't know.
Definitely does. Talking to Sunil on Twitter. It's cool.
yeah. I love Sunil, man. He and I definitely get into some good conversation on here, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right. The question now is, what do you do with Trey?
Start him.
All right. Hey, well, what should the 49ers do based off of what we know? Because we know that's not going to happen, right?
You see, here's the deal. Trey was bad. And then you can't be under 70% throwing screen passes. He was right around 70% throwing screen passes. Are you better at throwing screens? Are you better at throwing the short stuff? If you are, I have to see. Because what happens if you don't play and Brock plays the whole year, Trey gets to decide where he's traded. He gets leverage. Trey sits for the whole year. He gets leverage because he has to negotiate with the team you're trading him with. Because nobody's going to pick up that fifth-year option. No one. So he's going to have to negotiate a deal to go to his new team. He can essentially pick his new team. And I've just paid $20 million to get somebody else a franchise quarterback. I'm not doing that. I'm playing them and seeing what I have.
I don't disagree with you. You and I are on the same page with that. However, we know that they're going to play Brock. So let's operate. If I'm the 49ers, my thing has been this, and I think it surprised a lot of people the first time I said it. But if I'm the 49ers, and I truly feel that Brock Purdy is that dude, then I'm not hedging. I'm getting rid of the problem. And the problem would be Trey Lance in this scenario. Just like the problem was Jimmy Garoppolo when you drafted Trey Lance.
Right.
When you drafted Trey Lance, you should have removed the problem. And I don't mean a problem like they're a malcontent or anything like that.
Doubt. It's just doubt.
It's just, yeah. Don't have any scenario where it can go bad and you can then point to, well, we got this guy, bring him back in. Don't do that. Why would you do that to somebody that you feel is the franchise guy? And especially because it's inexpensive.
Well, then in that situation, they got to move Sam too. It's still a hedge. And mainly because they were ready to trade a first-round pick for Sam when he was at the Jets. They tried to trade for Sam before they gave up those picks to move up to get Trey. And then the first quarterback that they get, they add him. So let's say you get rid of Trey, and it's him, and it's Allen, and Purdy starts to struggle. Sam's had 55 starts. Sam's a guy that the coach believes in. It's kind of the same thing.
I look at Sam as a hedge, but a little bit differently. I think Sam would be a hedge for injury. Like, you got to have somebody good just in case he goes down. So Sam makes sense because he started a lot of games. You do believe in him, what have you. He's there for a 1-year deal, good to go. And then you got Brandon Allen as well. You got 3 guys that you're supposedly comfortable with. Mm-hmm. And Trey's the one guy that the fan base is really, if you're losing at Levi Stadium, let's say they're losing to the Cowboys, primetime game, we're 3 picks in, it's the third quarter. I mean, you're not going to get a chance for Sam Darnold, but you're definitely going to get a chance for Trey Lance. So why even have that potential be there? I'm not saying that it would happen or that he's going to have a game that awful, but what I'm saying is, why even present that chance as being a possibility? Remove it before it becomes an issue.
If I'm reading, do you really think that there's a situation where they would actually bench him for Trey?
Listen, I don't think that would be there. But if you want to avoid the questions, if you want to avoid taking any confidence, if you want to avoid putting Brock in any compromising situation, you just don't keep Trey around. That's my opinion.
Yeah. Well, see, the only thing about they got a lot of.
Let me give you a scenario.
Okay.
Brock Purdy goes out. We'll take the same scenario. They lose to the Cowboys at home, primetime game. They're 2-2 or what? I don't know how many games they're in at that point. Let's say they're 2-2 or what have you. They lose to the Cowboys at home, primetime game. He throws a touchdown, 3 picks, and 180 yards. And the first question at the podium is like, well, you heard the crowd chanting Trey's name. How'd that make you feel? I mean, why even let that happen? And it's coming from Grant. Hey, Brock, it sounded like the chants were for Trey Lance there pretty loud. They did put him in midway through the fourth quarter. How do you feel about that?
I see your point. I just don't think that Kyle cares about what they're being asked in the media. I don't. Look at our players have been tortured with these quarterback questions for years.
For sure.
He still hasn't done anything to stop it. He doesn't care.
Right?
Yeah, he doesn't care. It's like I said, but if Brock plays 17 games, you're gonna lose Trey at the end of the year anyway. Because what's the point of keeping him another year and he still doesn't have in-game experience? So what? Now I can take the chance now. If we don't win the Super Bowl, I can take this chance that I wasn't willing to take last year. So I mean, they might as well move him. If they have someone that wants to give up, I mean, you pretty much are in a situation you got to take what you can get. And the fans are going to be okay with it until you don't win the Super Bowl. Because if you trade him to the NFC and he goes to a team and they beat you, you ain't going to live that down. Not if you've never gotten a Super Bowl. So I can see why they would hold on to him. And like I said, me personally, I would start him. But I don't think that they would trade him just because I just think Kyle's an asshole. I don't think Kyle will trade him. He's not worried about what Brock Purdy is going to be. Well, if you don't want to match the questions, play better. I think that will be a Kyle response, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like it'd be a Kyle response, right?
Right. It sounds, yeah. Well, you should have played better. Well, if you didn't throw 3 picks today, they probably wouldn't have said that. That sounds more like how.
Yeah, that's brutal. You're right about that. I don't know, man. I hate the hedging. I hate the hedging by the
thing
team.
about it is the players aren't going to call for Trey because they don't know what Trey is. I mean, yeah, they see him in practice, but they say practice and games are different. They haven't played any games with Sam either. They've only played a couple with Trey. So nobody's going to be calling for his job. So, hey, you're going to have to deal with the media. They're not going to care. I think they're going to hold on to Trey for injury purposes.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, is there
maybe a package or something?
Well, the scenario that I laid out early this offseason, Chase Young, would you do that deal?
No.
Chase Young for Trey?
No, I'm starting Trey. There's no way I would listen. There's something about that kid.
Yeah.
And there's something about that kid that I really like. And I was a huge Cap fan, but I was ready to move on from Cap. Even though I knew the team deteriorated around him, I knew Cap would never just have it. Trey, that's a different story. I believe in that kid. So,
man, Cap gave us some good memories though. There was at Green Bay. I'll never forget that.
Never forget that game in Green Bay. Hey man, I'm from Iowa, so you know we look. Hey man, I hate the Packers.
Yeah, for sure.
I hate the Cubs. I hate the Vikings because I used to have to always watch their games. So I don't like them. I don't like any of those 3 teams. I like the Lions the most out of their division.
I feel it.
Yeah.
Raheem Foreman says it's a little irresponsible to say that no other quarterback has a chance to take the job when this is a team that values practice and players clearly. What players clearly have to say. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think. Again, going back to the soundbite, you really are getting a glimpse into what Kyle Shanahan's thinking, which is it's interesting because he's kind of playing both sides to the sense of you hear some of what like the Brock Purdy guys are saying, which is, hey, he played great. You've got to start him. So you hear that. Then the second part you hear is the Trey Lance side of things, which is, okay, we know the upside's definitely there. It's hard not to want to see what that's about. And then the third part of that is, I don't know what the right choice is. Long term, I have zero clue. He was very vulnerable in that situation. And so this right here, what you're saying is, yeah, I mean, through practice, sure, but we do have games, and that's really that one's interesting to me. We'll see. Hold on. Monsis hit me up. Okay. Think he has something going on with his kids, so he'll be right back. Not a big deal. I'll get through these super chats. Appreciate you, Raheem. Brother Bob says, Nails. Purdy is fully cleared to practice, but is not participating in the first practice. I know, it's so weird, right? But not participating in the first practice. When you say it out loud, it sounds even more strange. Well, that's clear. So Lance gets first snaps, pig in a pickle. I don't know what the last part is. That a nose, and then I don't either pig in a pickle nose. Maybe that's it. Love the emoji game. Yeah, it sounds like Lance and Sam on the off days for Purdy are going to split first team reps. So cool. I guess we're good to go there. But you're right. I mean, Purdy's got no limitations yet. We're going to limit him. It seems a little strange. Overall, though, he's definitely ahead of schedule, and he's definitely pacing to play week 1. What they said, although the words were a little strange, and how especially John Lynch talked about it and seemed to just be really smitten every time he got to talk about Brock Purdy. That was a little off-putting to watch. Like, dude, just chill out.
He's definitely got a pick, and that man does not like Trey.
Oh, my gosh.
Look, the man has something to say about every question, unless it was about Trey.
Yeah. I mean, every time that Brock Purdy gets brought up, he's like, big smile. He's looking at Kyle, and he's like, "Oh yeah, and just to add on to that, we're gonna do this. Oh, the velocity thing. Yeah, I mean, we did a GPS thing on his arm, and he's got the same velocity. And just kudos to him for working his butt off." So Trey Lance, sounds like he's put in some good work this offseason.
Came back from a broken ankle, but hey, you know.
That was the whole press conference in a nutshell. Every time Trey Lance gets mentioned, he's like tight-lipped, looking around, drinking his water.
Right.
Every time Purdy, it's like, oh, I got something to say about this. So that thing was very interesting.
Yeah.
209er says, think Brock feels the pressure to come back too soon.
Yeah. Definitely. I think so.
You think so? Okay, walk me through this real quick.
Oh, yes. And the reason I think so is because Kyle's like a player in the city. Okay. So you got girls in every suburb in every direction.
Okay.
And you can just move on whenever you feel like it. Oh, you ain't give me attention. I'm gonna go over here on the southwest side. That's how he is with his quarterbacks. You let somebody else start week one, let them have success. I won't even look your way. That's Kyle. I think he's aware of that with Kyle. I'm not gonna, and at the same time, Brock is. I got my opportunity because Trey got hurt. I'm not going to give Trey an opportunity with an injury. I think he is pressuring himself. I think he's pressuring himself. But yeah, I definitely think he is.
I think he
wants to play. I mean, the guy wants to play football. He doesn't want to lose that job.
Yeah.
He got drafted, at the beginning of last year. He probably thought he'd never play a snap. You know what I mean? But he did, and he doesn't want to lose that.
I agree with that. And I definitely think he's acutely aware of the situation. I think that he feels some pressure, right? Like obviously if I don't come back, I could lose my job. But I don't think it's enough pressure for him because, and I could be wrong, and it's limited characters, 209er, clarify. But I believe this question is coming from, hey, do you think Brock is pushing himself to come back too early because he feels the pressure? I don't believe in that. I think he definitely feels some pressure. I think that's natural. I think he's acutely aware of the situation. He's very smart. But I don't think that he's feeling so much pressure that he's like, oh my gosh, I got to be back day one of training camp. I got to rush through this thing and I'm not fully healthy. That's not the way that I feel this is playing out. Yeah, I think that's what he's alluding to.
Yeah, so when is the first practice that he participates in? Is the media going to be there?
Yes.
We'll know then, because it really depends on what they have him do. Are they running plays, running offense? Is he throwing the ball 25 yards down the field? Is he ripping the ball? What is he doing in that practice? Because that'll let you know a lot.
Yeah,
because they could have because of him being fully cleared just means he's physically able to have physical contact. Doesn't mean his arm's all the way back. His arm could be at 60%. Yeah.
I think he's ready to rock. I don't see a scenario where they. I can't go. And I know that you're not the only one that thinks this. It sounds like Ryan and Grant, to a certain extent, we're kind of on this as well. I personally don't think Brock Purdy's that guy to where he's going to compromise his whole future if he's not fully ready to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think that he's like out throwing when he has pain in his arm. I think if he has pain in his arm, he's going to chill. But at the same time, I think he wants to play football, for one. And two, he doesn't want to give anyone an opportunity to take that job from him.
I agree with that. I do agree with that. To what extent? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think it's like a situation where he's being ignorant to how he feels. I don't think he's ignoring. I don't think he's ignoring anything that he's going through. But I definitely think he's putting pressure on himself because he doesn't want someone else to be there week one.
Yeah, I guess I can see that. Brother, now I get it, Brother Bob. Now you see, you add the snowflake, and it makes so much more sense versus a nose and a line. But I got you, man. Listen, we went 4 hours strong last night. I don't know how he does it. In fact, I don't think Brandon throughout the whole episode took a single drink of water. The guy's a robot, man. He's a machine. I do not understand that.
It was still a good show. It was still a good show.
I loved every second of it. And I loved chopping it up with them. I loved hearing what's going on in Seattle because I do think they're like the number one threat in the NFC West if they're I guess is such a thing.
Yeah.
And they're close. I think that they're going to split this year. But man, that dude just 4 hours, not a single sip of water. I could be mistaken. Maybe I missed it. I can't do it, man. I don't know how he does it. So
yeah.
maybe.
And what did you think about him saying that Seattle isn't scared of Brock Purdy?
That doesn't surprise me. There's nothing to be scared of yet. Unless
Brock Purdy walked off. Brock Purdy put up all those points on them in the playoffs.
Who cares? Like they look at it just like we do. Like there's an elite team around them. You know what I mean? Like, right. But also I want to say this, and this is a very important lesson for anybody out there. You do not have to be scared to get your ass whooped, right? Sure. You can definitely get your ass whooped going into that fight, feel very confident. Okay. So they don't have to be scared of Brock Purdy. I do think they respect Brock Purdy enough to where it's like, hey, we know that he can cook here and beat us. We saw it multiple times. So I'm sure the respect is there. Fear, physically, what would you fear? Like you fear quarterbacks that are Herbert or Allen or, have some sort of marvelous trait where they can run for a ton of yards or make these crazy throws that you just can't. You could play the perfect defense and you can't account for this miraculous throw that he's going to make cross field 50 yards on a rope. Those are the things that you fear.
And that's why I would start Trey Lance.
But you've got to respect what he did. And I think that's where Seattle fans are. And I understand it. I wouldn't fear him either. I don't fear Geno Smith. I respect him. I don't fear him. I don't fear. I don't fear Goff or Kirk Cousins. I respect them.
Geno Smith because we have a great defense.
For sure, but also
it's tough. It's tough to be. It's like there's only what quarterbacks am I afraid of? Lamar.
I was scared every time they played Russell Wilson. I was terrified of that game.
Yeah, definitely. But I'm only like right now, Mahomes, Lamar. That's it.
I don't know. I'm pretty scared of Burrow and Allen and Herbert.
I'm not scared of Herbert. I'm not scared of the Bengals. It's just because I'm not scared of the Bills. Actually, I'll take that. I'll add Josh Allen to that list, but not Burrow and not Herbert. I'm not afraid of
the way that I see it is, let's say we just have generic team, not the team they're on now, but you just take generic team.
Oh,
let's take the Seattle Seahawks. So hold on. Let's take the Seattle Seahawks and we remove Geno. Are you scared of Herbert if he's with that team? I'm terrified.
It's different. That's different.
I just want to be clear. The quarterback scares me.
Oh yeah, that's different. Definitely different.
Okay.
You got him out there with DK. Come on, man. Yeah, I'd be scared of them. Because I'm looking at their weapons. I'm looking at the way they play. Yeah. So you could throw Herbert in. I am not afraid of the guy in Cincinnati.
Burrow?
Yeah. If I were to be able to pick the 49ers matchup from the AFC of the top 5 teams, I'd take Cincinnati 10 times out of 10.
I fear him the least out of those guys for sure.
And I believe that we can beat them. Yeah, I would be extremely confident with Brock Purdy going up against the Bengals.
Yeah, again, there's just a difference in fear level. There's about 5 quarterbacks I actually fear, 5 or 6. And the best way to look at it is take your division rival, put that quarterback there, and then do you fear them? And I don't fear them with Geno. I'm not scared of Geno. I was scared of Russell Wilson when he was in his prime. That game scared me. Didn't matter. You knew there was going to be some magic, some BS was going to happen.
Always something.
Every time, man. Every time you thought they were done, they weren't.
How did you celebrate? How long was your celebration when they left the division?
Oh, dude, I wish I still had the old channel. I was popping bottles live. Like, let's go. Not really, but close. No. It wasn't that. It wasn't that intense, but I might as well have been.
Right.
Figurative bottles. I'm not a big drinker at all. Frank Tom Ocean says they need to get Parag on his soccer team, promote Lynch to president or whatever, and make Peters the GM. But this won't happen until they get a Super Bowl. I love that, by the way. I think that would be fantastic. I think Peters would be a great GM. I certainly don't want to lose him. I think John Lynch would be much better in that higher up role, the way that he's kind of the face of the like to media, but I don't know if he's necessarily the shot caller when it comes to any of these players. So I love that idea for sure. Tech TDs and Taps says all John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan's remarks on the on the QBs exclude Brandon Allen. Is he out? No, I don't think so.
He actually got a glowing. He got a glowing remark from Kyle.
He did.
Who gives it to everybody, but Brandon Allen is in the competition.
Yeah, he's there. They got to know what they got in Brandon Allen, man. You got to know. You got to know.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Nick Bosa here. And this was a topic that you had brought up to me in your email. And the one news we didn't get today was Nick Bosa's signed. My prediction coming into this was after Sunday's practice. I think that's the first padded practice. After that practice, we'll get an announcement. So we'll see if that holds true. But what we do know is Kansas City has one of the best defensive players in the league right now that they're not seemingly willing to give that kind of money to. Quarterback situation is definitely different over there. The 49ers are going to pay Bosa. Absolutely, coming off of Defensive Player of the Year, and he's going to get top tier money. At some point, players become overpriced. I don't know if we're there with Bosa yet. What are your thoughts? Do you feel like he's quote unquote overpriced?
It's so difficult to answer this because man, it's so difficult because Bosa is an absolute monster.
Yeah,
he's the best defensive end in the league. Great against the run. Outstanding versus the pass. However, come playoff time, man, he's the invisible man. And it could be because he's tired out, because he does, there's not a lot of depth behind him. But when the rubber meets the road, like Shannon says, Bosa's nowhere to be found. He's not making these plays in the playoffs. I'm not giving a quarterback salary to a defensive end. But I look at the value of the defensive line differently than most people. I value the interior pass rush more than the edge. Because there's always edge rushers. There's hardly ever interior pass rushers. So, I would have traded Bosa to get the draft picks to go get Lamar. I would have done that in a minute. I mean, in a second. No hesitation. So is he overpriced? I think he's asking for too much, and I think they're just going to have to fold and give it to him because the Bosas, they're about their money.
They know what's up.
They know we're not paying a quarterback, and they know that Brock isn't even going against the cap hit for the next 3 years. Nick's going to milk that for the next 3 years. He's going to milk us not having a quarterback.
Mm-hmm. As he should.
They're probably asking for 30, in between 38, 40 million. I would not be surprised if that's what if they're not and they don't budge, I wouldn't be surprised if he came off with 38 a year.
Ooh.
Because they're taking
that would be an overpay. I'm sorry.
They're taking advantage of the situation because they know Brock's on $900K a year for the next 3 years. Like, hey, you're gonna have to front load us for 3 years. Because you're not paying a quarterback. They're not going to say it. But, hey, you're not paying a quarterback. I'm not paying. I'm 32, 33. I wouldn't go any higher than that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine if he's the highest paid guy in the league. But if he just, like, resets the market and is at 38 to 40, that's at some point it's like, bro, let's chill out a little bit. I'm curious to see what that guaranteed number comes out at.
Yeah, I want to see. I really wish I could be a fly on the wall in those negotiations. Because
the 49ers don't want to give it.
Right. And I had a conversation with my best friend. I told him to tune in, so he's probably watching. And we were talking about this before Lamar was available. I said, I'm trading him because I'm not paying him. I'm trading you, I'll take 3 first-round picks, and I'll pick up some veteran defensive ends, and I'll, get younger in the draft. I'm not paying a defensive lineman that much money. I'm not doing that. No.
Yeah, I think it all comes down to philosophy.
Yeah, because up until we actually have our quarterback, I don't want to put myself in a position to where, because what'll happen is you pay Bosa that money, there is no Kirk Cousins possibility. you can forget Kirk Cousins. That's not happening because you have to destroy too much of the team for that to happen. You can't add a veteran. You can't make a big trade for a quarterback that maybe falls out with their coach. So you can't do anything at the quarterback position with that money for the next 3 years. So you have to keep Brock. What if you find out this year you don't want Brock? Then you're stuck with Brock. So that contract, that Bosa contract, it's got some ground shaking impact on the team. And I'm telling you, I would have traded him for those picks to get Lamar so quick. But hey, that's over. But yeah, I think he's going to reset the market. 30, no less than 35.
Man, listen, I would have traded him for Lamar as well. I mean, there's no doubt about that one, but we're not in that scenario now. I mean,
Right.
To me, and Bosa, he's interesting because you talked about the playoffs. The sack numbers may not be there, like they weren't necessarily there last year. They were non-existent, but you still see the impact play in and play out that he makes. I mean, Amenahu had the game-ending sack. I think it was against Seattle. That was because Bosa took on the double team and allowed him to just get home. So he's still making the impact. Obviously, Super Bowl against Kansas City was unable to get home. That whole thing was fishy anyways. The fact that the worst offensive line in the playoffs had the most holding penalties throughout the whole year, got 0 holding penalties against arguably one of the best defensive lines.
The league favors offense.
Well, dude, it was brutal. So
yeah, he got held more. I mean, a lot of people focused on that one play. He was getting held all game.
All over the place he was getting held. It was awful.
He didn't get a flag. So the league is devaluing the defense because they're leaning towards helping the offense. They're going to do what they're like. It's just like the NBA. They want more points. They're going to lean in whatever direction it takes to get it. So they're devaluing the position, but I think he's going to be overpriced because he knows the 49ers have to pay. Just got defensive player of the year, and the Bosas are about that money. They are.
He's definitely got the leverage. Like he's got all the leverage.
All the leverage. He's got more leverage than you want him to have. So 35 at a minimum, I think.
I remember last offseason, people were like, we should really try to sign Bosa so that, we don't have to get into that bidding war. And I was like, I don't know if you know how the Bosas operate, but he's 100% betting on himself. He's going to ball out and he's going to get big time money because he knows exactly how to play this game. His brother did the same thing. If they would have offered him a contract last offseason, he would have laughed in their faces and been like,
yeah, he would have.
Yeah, right. Let's wait till after next offseason when I can get even more.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we always sign late, so we always allow the market to dictate. Young players always get signed before we sign our players. We always wait until August. But because we could have got Debo for $5 or $6 million cheaper if we just signed him right away.
Oh yeah, potentially. Yeah, if we would have been the first out the gate. Yeah. No doubt about that. No doubt about it.
So with the way that they do things, I'll be surprised if it's south of 35. I'd be surprised. And at $35 million a year, that's overpriced. He never has the ball in his hand. You know what I mean? Never has the ball in his hand. That's overpriced. That's overpriced.
It's a lot. It's a lot.
I mean, but it is the market.
But you got to do it, right? Like, what is the other? What's the alternative now? There is no alternative. You have to do it. You have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah, you do. So that's what I mean, though. He's overpriced. He is overpriced just because he just won Defensive Player of the Year. You're screwed.
Oh yeah, you're definitely. He has all the leverage right now. He definitely has got you by the nuts, no doubt about it.
He's got a lot of it. Anything south of 35 will be a shock to me.
Yeah, he's gonna get paid. I'm curious again. That what it comes down to for me is how much is going to be guaranteed because that's where they're at this gridlock right now. That's what's holding this up because the 49ers, they'll give you the big contract, the one that gets reported and everybody's like, oh, you got paid how much? And then you start to really look at it and you're like, it was only this much guaranteed. They'll do that deal all day long. It's the guaranteed one. And he wants the guaranteed money. All about guaranteed money.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Here's the good thing. And here's why I'm going to say not necessarily overpaid because maybe today, yes, but in 2 years, nope. He won't be then. I mean, once some of these other guys start to come out and get paid and whatever,
is Cap gonna jump again?
it'll keep going up. It should keep going up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
No doubt
mean,
about it.
we don't have a quarterback to pay, so we'll be able to deal with it.
Yeah. But I think to your point, this means that Brock kind of has to be the guy, right? Because if Brock's not the guy, how do you afford both? We see that Kansas City's going through that right now. Like, hey, we can't do both.
The only thing about that is you can't be a bean counter in this game, especially when it comes to the quarterback position, and that's what we've been doing. We've been bean counting, and we're paying for it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That thing's going to get interesting. What's your prediction on when it happens? I think Sunday after practice we'll hear about it.
Sunday, Monday. I think they'll fold.
I think so.
Yeah, they're gonna fold. It's gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a big.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a big quarterback deal, man.
Yeah, for sure. So we just talked about Bosa and how he's about to get the bag. We know that he's about to get a ton of money. We know that Trent Williams is close to retirement. We don't know how close. He could be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, but we're getting there. We know that CMC is a running back, and he's starting to push that age where running backs potentially decline.
Yeah.
We know that they got to figure out the quarterback position. I just really feel like unless that quarterback is on the roster right now and they discover him, so whether it's Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, what have you, that is the only way that really they're going to have a chance to continue to win, like a serious chance to continue to win after this year. Otherwise, I'm starting to get that feeling that this year is so crucial. And I think the 49ers are feeling that as well. The way that they're talking about it, like, hey, we can't have these growing pains with Trey Lance. We were willing to do it last year, knowing that we had time for this window to kind of stay open. I think they're starting to feel like, hey, this thing could close rapidly here. Do you feel like this is their best? I'm not going to say that it's now or never, like they're not going to compete again. That's not where I'm going with this.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
But is it now or never with this team is currently constructed to get it done? Are you getting that feeling? Because I certainly am right now.
Well, with the players that we've celebrated for the longest, with the George Kittles and the Eric Armstead, where you're talking about including every player, then yeah, it is now or never. However, because like next year you take a chance of losing like Juszczyk and Armstead. You still got your entire team together. So I think 24 is more of a now or never than 23. But I think that there's more pressure than anyone knows up top on Kyle. I think there's some pushing from New York on Kyle because they came and asked for that money. They used the draft picks on Trey. You still don't even know what you did with it. And then you come to him and ask him for $40 million to go sign another defensive tackle. So I don't think this year is now or never, but I think there's more pressure on him. I think 24 is the year. Like if you haven't done it with this group, it's going to look real different the following season. So I don't think 23 is it, but it's close. It's getting close. I think 24 is going to be worse. I think 24 is going to be worse than 23. Okay.
I mean, I don't know what's going on. My thing is like Trent Williams is like the big fish right now. It's like, gosh, is he done after this year? What does that look like? I guess the blessing in disguise would be that you would free up a lot of money, but then how do you replace him? I don't know.
If we win the Super Bowl, he's retired.
I think so too. But then who cares if the window shut? I mean, the window can slam shut for all I care. Get the ring. Yeah. Get the ring, please.
Right. Get it.
And I would also say that if you win a Super Bowl, that you found your quarterback in that process. I don't think that they can win a Super Bowl without finding the quarterback in that process.
What if it's Sam? What if something happens, Sam starting, and Sam win the Super Bowl?
Worst case scenario, because then you got to pay him. He's a free agent after this year. Worst case scenario. Literally, the worst case scenario would be him being the reason you win a Super Bowl.
Yeah, that's terrible. Actually, no, you can't pay him. You can't afford
it. How do you afford it? Yeah,
you can't even afford it. No, because all of the pushing back of contracts, all of the dead money. We can't move Debo next year. You're going to pay a lot of dead money if you move Armstead. There's Juszczyk and then there's Greenlaw. Those are the only contracts we can get rid of, and that's like $2 million in dead cap.
Armstead, if you wait till post June, is like I think it goes down significantly.
I
So it's
think
like
it goes
4 or
down
5
to like
million.
6 million. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like that.
doable. It's doable, and then you can offset it over 2 years. But yeah, I mean that's that's worst case scenario. That
Yeah.
would be the worst case
That would be the
scenario.
worst case scenario. And man,
Yeah.
it'd be such a fucking 49er thing to happen.
Wouldn't it be though? It would be fitting. It would be fitting. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my
Oh
god.
man.
Pissed.
Wolf Life Wild. What's up, Wolfcast? How you been, man? He says Niner Gang Wolfcast is here a little late. Much love, Jane A. Much love to you too. He said thoughts on Purdy being rushed. I don't think he's being rushed per se. We did talk about that. And then thoughts on Terrence Mitchell being signed. I think it's a decent signing. I definitely think it's a decent signing. I mean, it's not a big splash by any means, but 31-year-old corner started 50 to 60 games in this league. Definitely gets picks every season when he's playing. So I have zero issue with it. He's a little bit smaller. I think he's 5'9", 5'10"-ish, but I think it's a solid signing for some depth for sure. It's not a desperate signing. It's a solid one.
Yeah, shorter players usually are. The shorter players that stick around are usually playmakers. So,
For sure. Yeah, that's true. No, it's very true.
Yeah.
Official B&A Music says paying Bosa will force Kansas City's hand with Chris Jones. Yeah, maybe.
Well, I don't
Maybe.
think that they're not going to pay him. I think that they're trying to, stall him and get him as low as they can, but I think they will extend him.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. They're seeing what they can get away with, no doubt about it. Texas Niner says, so Jesse, if Purdy wins the Super Bowl this year, is it the team around Purdy or is it Purdy? I mean, I have to see the season play out, but I mean, I would have to say a big reason would be Purdy. Again, the conversation was the reason you bring in Trey Lance was because Jimmy Garoppolo just wasn't enough. And so you needed a little bit more than Jimmy Garoppolo. And presumably, I think we can all agree that Purdy brings that. So I would think that Purdy would be a big reason for that. Now, that also doesn't mean that Purdy can now all of a sudden carry a team that's not loaded. Those are two different things. But of course, you would have to give Purdy credit. This team was not winning a Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. And Jimmy Garoppolo is a starting level quarterback in this league. I've always said it. Anywhere from 17 to 22. So if Purdy's slightly better than that even, and they win a Super Bowl, he would have to be a big reason for that. But let me be clear, that does not mean he's a franchise quarterback. Those are still two different things. But yes, he would absolutely deserve credit. No doubt about it.
I think our defense has to be better than 19. Otherwise it won't happen. I just don't think it'll happen unless it is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Wolf Life comes back again. What's up, man? He says, hell yeah, love it. I want to see Trey play. And then he's got the crying emoji. Yeah, I do too. And we still may.
We'll see him in preseason, but that's about it.
I just want to see him win a Super Bowl. Gosh damn it. Like, however that's got to go down. Just can you make that happen regardless? Let's just make that happen.
Right.
I don't care how we get there. Like,
yeah. So have you moved at all off of your season prediction after looking at the schedule and finding we're playing 4 teams off bye weeks and didn't change?
No. I think I'm pretty comfortable with 12-5. Pretty comfortable with 12.
So so you still and you think the biggest threat is the Eagles, right? In the NFC.
NFC?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the Eagles.
Who's number 2?
Honestly, I think it's Dallas.
I've got Detroit.
I think it's Dallas. Detroit's definitely that. Listen, they're not.
I
Seattle and Detroit are right there too.
I got Detroit ahead of Dallas, man. I got Detroit ahead of Dallas. I think Detroit is going to shock some people. So
they got the offensive coordinator to do it.
They got one tackle to neutralize Bosa by himself.
Yeah,
help, and that does a lot.
They've got an elite offensive line in Detroit. They're not playing, man. They are big too, man. That is a mauling team. They are maulers in Detroit. That would be an interesting matchup. That would be a fun matchup. I would enjoy that one. Yep.
Yeah, it would be. I
think they're a year away still, but not from making the playoffs, but like truly competing. But I like what they're doing out there in Detroit.
I think their offensive coordinator. What is that? Their offensive coordinator. I don't know.
Ben Johnson.
I think Ben Johnson can. Man, they can surprise some people, and if they ended up in the conference championship, I wouldn't be shocked. I think
Ben Johnson's the real deal.
Ben Johnson is that good. So
yeah, No, I agree with that. No pushback there. Texas Niner follows up and says, so what does Brock Purdy need to do to be classified a franchise quarterback in your eyes? Twofold. Again, 3 years for me is really where I'm at. So I got to see it this year and I got to see it the year after. And I got to see that he's the reason you're winning games. And we'll know. I don't think, to me, like, this is clear. This is very, very clear. There's teams that win games with quarterbacks. Jared Goff's a great example. Ryan Tannehill's been a great example. Jimmy G's been a great example. And there are teams that win multiple games because of their quarterback. You'll know the difference. Trust me, it'll be obvious he's a franchise quarterback. It'll be very, very obvious.
Yeah, because with this roster, will you be able to though?
That's what I'm saying. It'll be obvious because you'll see it for 3 years in a row, and at that point the roster will be stripped away a little bit. You'll know if he's a franchise quarterback, like a true franchise quarterback. We're talking top 7, top 8 in the league. You'll know. Trust me, you'll know he's a franchise quarterback.
He won't be top 8, top 7 in the league.
And there are good quarterbacks that I don't. And it all also is how you look at franchise quarterback. I know some people say, hey, if you're worth getting paid big money, then you're a franchise guy. They would look at a Dak as a franchise guy. I don't. They would look at Kirk Cousins as a franchise guy. I don't. Very good players. Those are not franchise quarterbacks to me.
But you can't win a Super Bowl with a good player. You can win a Super Bowl.
If you have an elite team around it,
exactly, and that's what I mean. Like Brock Purdy has an elite team around him. I mean, you got an elite defense. You got elite weapons. I mean, you don't have to be Patrick Mahomes to win a Super Bowl with this team. But that defense have to play lights out. So
yeah,
I mean, look at 19. We seen Jimmy. We got there because of our running game and our defense.
For sure.
You know what I mean? It wasn't because of Jimmy. We won in spite of Jimmy. And I don't really see that as the case with Brock, where we're winning in spite of him because he doesn't make the mistakes.
He's like a net zero potentially. I'll give you an example, and I've brought this up a million times, but Nick Foles and Joe Flacco, go look at those playoff runs. They were clear reasons that they won a Super Bowl that year. I mean, they were big contributors, but nobody, not a single solitary soul that wasn't in Baltimore or Philadelphia was like, they got a franchise quarterback. Nobody thought that outside of those fan bases.
They were scared to pay Flacco that money.
So I imagine that if Purdy won a Super Bowl, that in the 49er fan base, you would get a lot of, he's the franchise guy, no doubt about it. Outside the fan base, you'd be like, I wouldn't pay him $200 million or whatever that number is. You just got to see it for a few years. I just want to pump the brakes on crowning anybody as a franchise guy. We don't have to. We don't have to.
Yeah, we don't need to crown him this year. So
yeah, I don't know.
I think if he's going to be the guy he's starting, got to give him 34 games to you need the games to see. So
yep. Game Time says Bet Larry's having a field day. Pig in a pickle. Yeah, I'm gonna have Larry and Vish on Thursday. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun, especially because I won't be at training camp yet, and so it'll be great to get that inside information. MD 2020, is that like Mad Dog 2020? John Lynch gave 1 million people a shout out on who helped Brock recover, but has never given any credit to his number 3 pick, Trey Lance, and those that helped him get back on track. So frustrating. Thoughts? I mean, he's just not a Trey Lance guy. That much is clear.
I think he made it clear that he's never been a Trey Lance guy.
Yeah. No, I get it. Yeah, Drew Brees was a franchise quarterback for sure. Yeah, of course. He was. I mean, was he not a top 5, top 7 quarterback for many, many years? Of course he was is this like the setup? Hold on. Is this the setup? Like, well, then Brock Purdy's a franchise. Is that where we're going with that? Because we're way too early on that one.
That's definitely your setup. And we don't play in a dome either.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, I'm taking Ben Roethlisberger all day, every day over Drew Brees. No doubt about it. And I know that his arm carries regardless of the situation. If you put Drew Brees on the Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't think we would be talking about Drew Brees the way that we do. I think that's clear. Third string All-Pro says Nick Foles threw 7 TDs against the Raiders. He did. He also that playoff run went bananas, absolutely bananas. It was like, I think it was in 3 games, like 6 touchdowns or 7 touchdowns, 9 touchdowns, maybe even to 1 pick. He was
And it was
really,
crazy
really
because
good.
he almost averaged under 200 yards a game before the playoffs started. That was the crazy part about it.
I know. Yeah, absolutely. No, I don't think so. I think he and Drew Brees are pretty different players. I'm not saying that he can't be, like, it's impossible for him to ever reach that status, I guess. I don't want to say that anything's impossible. There's always a chance, especially when you believe in yourself as much as Brock does. But I don't see Drew Brees as a comp for him personally. He can write his own path and not have to be Drew Brees to do his thing, is what I'm saying.
I don't think he has the arm that Brees had, but I mean, and man, Brees' ball placement was that's tough. But I mean, what he was elite at, Brock would need to be elite at to be a franchise quarterback. I can say that. What
For
Brees
sure,
was-
processing, decision making,
ball placement, decision making. Yeah. So yeah, he can become a franchise quarterback if he's elite in those 3 areas. Yeah.
I mean, can I not judge any quarterback that I want to? I mean, nobody's perfect. Unless you're the greatest of all time or in that conversation, there was some things to be desired.
There's some things
I'm just saying,
you could say about Tom Brady in some of those Super Bowls if you really
I'm simply just saying, if I have my choice, if this is a knock that I'm taking one Hall of Fame quarterback over another, then I guess I'm talking bad about Brees. I'm taking Ben Roethlisberger over Drew Brees, and I'm not thinking twice about it. It's not, to me, it's not even a conversation. Again, if I put Ben Roethlisberger in a dome for his career and allow him to just play with Peyton, bro, you don't think those numbers would be insane? But if I put Drew Brees on Pittsburgh and say, okay, go AFC playoffs, you're going to have to go play on the road in New England, Baltimore, Cleveland, at home in Pittsburgh, road New York. No, man, that arm doesn't travel. I'm sorry. The arm would not travel. It would not do. He would not do the thing. And even then, when things got tight, I mean, there were times that his arm didn't travel even in a dome later in his career.
Yeah.
It's just the facts of it. Great player, Hall of Fame player, top 15 for sure. Arguably top 10. Definitely taking Steve Young over him. Am I talking bad about Brees if I take Steve Young? Where do we draw the line, Niner fans? Just saying. Keenan Gim says, just wanted to show some love. Great show tonight. I appreciate you, man. I really do. Ben had a way better team. Did he, or did he get a lot of people paid? Because correct me if I'm wrong. What did Antonio Holmes do without him? What did Wallace do without him? How would Le'Veon Bell's career carry on? Antonio Brown completely melted down as soon as he left. He got people paid now. Ben Roethlisberger did his thing and got people paid. Don't take anything away from Ben now.
Drew Brees wasn't playing with scrubs.
No, for sure.
Scrubs. He had, Meacham, Colston, Graham.
Yeah. I'm not saying that these are Hall of Famers by any means, but then
he had Kamara. Like, you're not playing with scrubs, man.
Yeah.
Like McNabb had Westbrook and went to 5 NFC championships. But he's not even considered a Hall of Famer. So it's not like you thought that's not even a good argument. I'd take Ben over him too because his arm doesn't translate in the weather. The same reason why I would start Trey Lance, because Brock, the arm does not translate in the weather. But I guess we have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, Game Time says Ben was a garbage for sure. Definitely not winning any people contest, but as a quarterback, I mean, dude, I'm sorry, he's just better than Brees was, in my opinion.
They figured out how to get to Brees quick, and it was over. They figured out how to get to him quick, and because I mean, they won one Super Bowl. It's not like they won multiple. They were always in the discussion and always in the conversation.
Yeah, but they're both Hall of Famers. But I mean, again, I definitely don't want to make it seem like I don't think Drew Brees is Hall of Fame quarterback or not really in the argument for top 10. To me, statistics are great and wins are great, but I guess I just look at things differently.
He's supposed to have better stats in a dome. He's supposed to.
Yeah.
You're on a dome, man. You're supposed to have better stats.
I just look at things differently. I really look at like I try my best to separate the player and what the contribution is and what it would look like on a neutral team with a neutral field. I don't think it's that crazy. And it seems like the chat doesn't kind of agrees with me that, it's not that crazy of a take. A lot of people are doing it. I'm not saying stats don't mean anything. That's not at all what I'm saying. I'm just saying there are things that mean more. There is the eye test is number one, always number one, eye test. And you can't necessarily quantify that. And that sucks that it's hard because that is a personal decision. That's a personal opinion. Two people can watch the same player and have completely different opinions. So I think the eye test is number one, but that's a personal thought on a player. Stats definitely come into it, wins, everything. But when you're trying to separate two Hall of Fame quarterbacks, I mean, you're a wins guy. You just told me, and I know you've said this in the past, like through conversation, Texas Niner, like, oh, I mean, if they win a Super Bowl, how can you not say Purdy's the guy? And other people have said that. Well, who has more rings? If we're just strictly going off of accomplishments, who has more rings? Is it Ben Roethlisberger or is it Drew Brees? Right? So he wins that argument. To me, he wins the eye test argument. So Drew Brees has the stats. All right. That's cool. I'm not saying that stats don't mean anything because he wouldn't be a top 10 quarterback if stats meant nothing, but it's tough. I mean, how do you compare eras? How do you compare schemes? How do you compare the defenses they went against? How do you compare playing in a dome versus not playing in a dome? There's a lot of things that go into it.
Didn't Ben have to go through Brady to get a Super Bowl?
For sure. That's the other thing. Bro, he was in... Let's not forget that Ben Roethlisberger was winning rings on Tom Brady's watch and Peyton Manning's watch. I think we can all agree, regardless of where you place him, that Tom Brady's certainly top 5. If Peyton Manning's not top 5, he's better be in your top 6. And he won multiple rings on their watches, having to go through them to get there. I mean, that's, dude, insane. Now, Drew Brees, they beat the Colts as well. Who did they beat? It was the Colts, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I think he beat the Colts. So, he was able to get through Peyton Manning, but he wasn't going through cold weather gauntlets, game in and game out, playing the GOAT to do it.
Was he the Super Bowl MVP or was it Reggie Bush?
I thought he was Super Bowl MVP.
I can't remember.
Let me look it up.
But I want to say that Reggie Bush had a lot to do with that game.
No, I mean,
I can't remember.
It takes a lot to win. But I mean, beating the Bears, I think is, if I remember correctly, they had to beat the Bears.
Yeah, the Manning beat the Bears with Kyle Shanahan's old quarterback, Rex Grossman.
Yeah. But didn't they also get through the Bears to play the Colts, if I remember? I mean, I could be tripping on that, but I swear they played the Bears, which is like, okay, cool. I guess.
Yeah, you beat Rex Grossman. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he got Super Bowl MVP. He was Super Bowl MVP. Yeah. So again, I mean, Hall of Fame for sure. Top 10 argument. Yeah. Crazy stats. But the two out of the 3 things, the most important things he doesn't have. He doesn't pass the eye test over Big Ben, and he doesn't have more rings. So case closed, brother. Case closed. I love it. Don't forget he had to go through Mark Sanchez. That's true. Yeah, no doubt about that. All right, y'all. Listen, Mansa, thank you so much for joining me tonight. Thank you for submitting yourself into the contest. Thank you to everybody that submitted yourself into the contest. Really appreciate y'all. The steam is picking up here on Last Second Sports. Tomorrow night, we've got 49ers After Dark. I'll be on with Grant. After that, we got the call-in show, so everybody gets to give their takes and their thoughts on today and what's reported tomorrow. Then on Thursday, I've got Vish and Larry coming on. That's going to be a banger of a show. Larry's going to give us some inside information on what he saw Thursday. And then we got a little bit of a break. Friday, Saturday, no practice. But Sunday, all the way through next Friday, I am at training camp, which means fire is going to be brought here on the channel. Make sure you stay tapped in. Appreciate y'all. I love the back and forth, Texas Niner. Call in tomorrow if you can, Texas Niner. Let's have the conversation. It's really hard. You're at a major disadvantage, man. I can say whatever I want. You only get a few words that you can throw out there. I know it's tough being on that side of things. Call in tomorrow. Let's have the conversation. Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, if you want to, brother. Hopefully everybody has a blessed night, and I'll be back. Actually, hold on. We got a few things here. Want to make sure that I get it through them all. We good? Okay, we made it through them all. Monsa, appreciate you. Peace.
Peace out. Yeah.